What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be ranking every single roller coaster at Hershey Park, so let's get right into it. Okay, guys, starting off at number 14, this is Coco Cruiser. I mean, there's not really much to say about this other than it's obviously number 14 in the ranking at Hershey Park, the last spot. You know, it's just a basic family roller coaster. You know, this is cloned at a lot of parks. It's a Zamperla Family Gravity Coaster. There's one at Dorney Park. There's one at Six Flags Great Adventure, one at Six Flags America. There's not much about this to talk about, so moving on to number 13. Okay, number 13 is Wild Mouse. Again, this is another coaster where there's not really much to talk about, other than, of course, it's a Wild Mouse. You know, this is a Mock Rides Wild Mouse. A lot of people do say this is one of the best Wild Mouse, but I've only ridden 2 of them, so I couldn't tell you if it's a better one or not a better one. So I guess, just moving on to the next coaster. Okay, number 12 is Trailblazer. This is an aerodynamics mine train. This is another ride that is at a lot of parks. Obviously, this isn't a cloned layout, but the model is at a lot of other parks. I mean, I would say personally, I haven't ridden many mine trains, but from like POVs and stuff like that from other mine trains, this, in my opinion, isn't the best mine train just because there's not much in the layout other than, some like bank turns and head and, arm choppers and stuff like that. The helix is pretty fun. That's honestly the highlight of the ride. Other than that, there's not much to talk about. So yeah, that's number 12. Now moving on to the next coaster. Okay, coming up at number 11 is Laugh Track. This is a spinning coaster. I see a lot of other people ranking this higher in their Hershey Park rankings, but me personally, this isn't my favorite coaster at Hershey Park. I've definitely learned to like it a little more lately, but still, this isn't my favorite coaster. Obviously, you'd want to sit in the back seat for the best ride in this. I think almost every time except for once I sat in the back seat, and it's definitely a better ride. So yeah, this isn't my favorite coaster at the park, but it's a good ride. I definitely recommend riding it. Okay, coming up at number 10 is Jolly Rancher Remix. This is a Vekoma boomerang. Obviously, there's not a lot to say about this because this is a Vekoma boomerang. So, yeah, obviously you have that loop and that cobra roll there. And then, of course, you have the 2 spikes. This is a better ride. And, of course, only on this boomerang, this ride, there is a flavor tunnel, which is pretty fun. But yeah, there's not much to say about this because this is a Vekoma boomerang. The spikes are pretty fun. I mean, obviously they're just spikes, but yeah. Moving on to the next coaster. Okay, coming in at number 9 is Super Duper Looper. Fun fact, this is actually the first modern looping coaster on the East Coast. This a pretty fun roller coaster. Obviously, the main thing with this ride is the loop. I mean, that one helix at the end is pretty fun. Other than that, of course, it's a pretty fun ride. There's not much to say about this, but, I always enjoy riding it whenever I'm at the park. So, moving on to the next coaster. Okay, coming in at number 8 is Comet, which is Hershey Park's oldest operating roller coaster. This is a PTC wooden coaster, a classic roller coaster. It has some good airtime and stuff. I don't really know what the highlight of the ride is. It's a pretty fun ride. Obviously, it has 3 different helixes. For me personally, I'd say this is almost better than Phoenix. So I really like this ride. It's a fun ride. I always enjoy riding it. So yeah. Number 7 is Lightning Racer. This is a very fun roller coaster. You can race other people since this is a GCI dueling roller coaster. So that means that there's 2 sides and, 2 different tracks and stuff. So you can go on either side. So that means you can race, your friends, your family, whoever you want to race, you can race. Or you don't have to race if you don't want to. This is a really fun coaster at the park. Obviously, it's not the best, but, it's a great coaster. Number 7 is a great spot for this coaster. There's not much to say about it other than, it's a really fun coaster and, it doesn't have a lot of airtime. It has a little bit, but not really much. It mostly focuses on like the laterals and that type of stuff. Really, the only thing that really makes this coaster is the fact that it races. But I feel like lately it hasn't been racing a lot. So yeah, now moving on to the next coaster. Okay, number 6 is Great Bear. This is a B&M invert. This is a really fun coaster. I have seen a lot of other people ranking this higher, but for me personally, this is number 6. It's a fun coaster, but really I'm not the biggest fan of B&M inverts. I like them, but they're not my favorite coaster. So it's not my favorite coaster in the park, but every once in a while it is fun to go on this, It's a B&M invert, so a lot of the GP and stuff love this because, it's an invert. So, it's like, a lot of GP talk about, the one that you dangle, your feet dangle, so that's what the GP say about it. But, it's a fun coaster, so now moving on to the next one. Okay, now moving on, number 5 is Pandemonium. This is Hershey Park's biggest coaster. It's their tallest, longest, and I think fastest coaster. So, a lot of people love this, a lot of the GP and stuff. Obviously, this isn't my favorite coaster because it is a B&M Hyper, but, it's a fun coaster. I would prefer if it was a little longer. I feel like it is, not necessarily in time, but, how it, I wish it would go back further. There would be maybe, one more airtime hill. But, really, it's a fun coaster. I enjoy riding it, as for all of Hershey Park's coasters, but, it's a fun, B&M Hyper. Yeah, it does. I do think it could have, one more airtime hill, but, yeah, moving on to the next coaster. Okay, number 4 is Fahrenheit. Me, personally, this is my personal favorite coaster. It's not, my number 1 coaster at Hershey Park, but it's my favorite coaster. I love this. This is, a coaster that I try to ride every single time I go to the park. It's really fun. Obviously, the main thing with this coaster is that it has a vertical lift and a 97-degree drop, which is pretty fun. And then the rest of the coaster is still good. I mean, it pulls some good G's and stuff like that. I do enjoy the, I forget what it's called, but the Norwegian loop. That's a fun part of the ride. And really all the rest of it, it's just, normal things like corkscrews and, cobra rolls, stuff like that. And at the end there, it has a fun airtime hill. So, yeah, I really like this coaster. A lot of people like it. But now moving on to the next coaster. Okay, now moving on to number 3, which is Storm Runner. This is an Intamin launch coaster. It is a short ride, but, it still is very fun. That launch is pretty intense. That flying snake dive, that's pretty fun. And, obviously that's one. I think that's one of 2 in the whole world flying snake dives. There's only one other flying snake dive. And I love at the end where it has that, shimmy back and forth kind of thing. Not shimmy, but it has those laterals. So it is a fun ride. A lot of people love this. Obviously it's Hershey Park's best launch coaster because it's their only launch coaster. But now moving on to number 2. Okay, number 2 is Skyrush. For a while now, ever since number 1 opened up, I've been debating which is better, number 2, which is Skyrush, or number 1. So, obviously, Skyrush is number 2 now. That's what I picked. But they're really close. Skyrush is a great coaster. Obviously, you have that 200-foot lift, that great drop, which a lot of people say feels like a car crash, which it is very fun. Of course, you have my personal favorite part of the ride is probably where you have that wave turn outer bank moment. That's really fun, especially if you're sitting on the right hand wing seat. That's, in my opinion, the best seat on this coaster is any of the right hand wing seats, but preferably the back row right hand wing seat. That's where I always ride. So, obviously a lot of people love this coaster. I of course love it too, but that's number 2. Moving on to number 1. Okay,
Hershey
number
Park just
one
opened
is
their
Wildcat
brand new
Revenge. This is
RMC
their
hybrid
all-new
coaster,
RMC
Wildcat's
roller
Revenge.
coaster.
So I thought,
It
why
used to
not
be
predict
Wildcat,
what Hershey
which was a
Park's
GCI roller
next roller
coaster, and
coaster
then they
could be?
transformed it into
Okay,
Wildcat
guys,
Revenge.
before I
And
get
this is a
into the
great
video,
ride.
I just want to talk about
So
what
much
I'm going to be
airtime, and
predicting. So
it has
first,
4
I'm going to be
inversions, which I think
predicting
it's tied
what
with
manufacturer and what model this will be.
Untamed that
So
will be
I'll have
Holland
3
for the
different
most inversions
manufacturers
on
and
one
3
roller
different
coaster.
models. I think,
Don't quote me on that, but I think it
would
is.
be a good
So
next
it's
coaster
a
for
really
Hershey
fun
Park.
coaster. Obviously,
And
it's their
then
newest
I'll be
coaster, so a lot of people love it.
Where in the park this will go? Like,
Obviously,
what
for a while
area of the
now,
park,
I've been
what
debating which
location.
is better,
And then
Wildcat's
lastly,
Revenge or
I'll be
Skyrush. And
predicting
obviously now I'm
what
saying Wildcat's
year
Revenge
this
is
will
better.
open. So let's get right into it. Okay,
You know, in the future, I might say Skyrush is better. It's just Skyrush. It's always running like
back.
one day it could be running really good, and the next day
Hershey
it's not
Park
running
had a
as good.
free
I feel like
coaster
lately it hasn't
contract
been
with
running like as
B&M.
fast.
I don't
and,
know if that was
not
true
as
or not,
intense.
but
But Wildcat's Revenge, it's always running good.
We'll
It's
say they do.
a great roller coaster. I highly recommend riding it.
I think Hershey Park's next coaster.
I wouldn't say I have a favorite part of the ride. Of course, that like double down shimmy part of the ride. That's one of the best parts. But
okay, guys.
Overall, it's a great ride, and this ride lately has just been getting a lot of praise and stuff. But it's a good ride.
I know this is a very bold
so yeah, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.